Hi everyone, it's Kim. Thanks for joining me. Today I want to take an idea that has been out there for a long time and change it up a little bit, maybe add a little twist to it. And I am talking about explosion boxes. So I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with those. And I've got mine all decorated. I've made several of these because they are very easy, and we'll talk about the outside in a minute. But when I take the lid off, the sides flap down, and that's where we have all the fun of decorating it. We can make little pockets, put little things in there. But I decided in the center of mine, I'm going to put one of Karen Bernstein's pop ups. And I used the fisherman and the fishing boat. I didn't have to worry about folding it up so that it will pop out of a card. I just made it open and then attached it to the base of my box, and that's where it will stay. So I can make it permanent. It doesn't have to move around, which is what I love. So let's talk about what I did on this card, and then I'm going to show you in less than 5 minutes how to make the base for an explosion box. It is so simple. A lot of you probably already know how. Tons of tutorials out there, but I want to just share how it's very simple. And in case you aren't familiar with this, then you'll see how easy it is. Let me just show you this box first because we're going to take a look at some others, different themed, but while we've got this guy out, let's just go through him. So I used a number of different dies and some of Karen Bernstein's new dies from her latest release. And one of those is my fisherman, and he is made from the Paper People. And then as far as like my cabin, that's just a piece of wood grain paper. I dug out a die for the window frame, and then I just made the door on my own and cut it out of some wood grain paper. And then the fishing pole is also from Karen's add-on, fishing boat add-on. So we'll take a look at this one here again in a minute. And then let's look at the animals. Those are all from one Sizzix set, and this is, I believe this may be retired. This is called Forest Animals #2, but I love the animals on this, and I thought this will really fill up the box nicely. So we've got the raccoon. He's got the little fish from Karen Bernstein's add-on set. We've got our bear, the fish, and the fishing pole from, again, the fishing boat add-ons, and then the elk. And I had to trim down his antlers a little bit to make them fit on the box, but that is okay. And then on the inside, we've got more of the fisherman here. All of the trees are from this set with the animals. So again, any set that you have with trees would work. And the mountains, let me show you the die I used for that. And I think this one too, unfortunately, is retired, but I know there's tons of edging dies for mountains. So this one is from Sizzix, and this is called Skyline Silhouettes, but any mountain type of die would work. Let's see, this little bear is from a Sizzix die that I had in my stash. This is called Nature Friends, and he was just in a different position, sitting down a little smaller for the inside of my card. And then for the fisherman and his boat, that is using the boat pop-up, which you need is the base boat, and then the fishing boat add-on. So that added my seat and the motor, fishing rod, the fish, all of that. So that covered a lot of the pieces. Now on the inside, if you want to make little pockets, tons of ideas out there on what to do. So I did make a little pocket because I'm going to use this as a gift. So instead of just wrapping my gift card up, I decided to make a box. So this is my present box with all of my gift cards. So behind all the mountains, I left this open behind the Brown Mountain Range. And then I could pop in, like if I want to give somebody maybe an annual pass to the parks, I could give them a gift card in another one. Over here, if I want to give them a little card so I could write something in there for whatever occasion. And for this would be great for a guy, whether a birthday, Father's Day, maybe retirement, whatever. And I did leave this open too, but in a moment when I wasn't thinking and I was attaching the trees, I glued the trees down, so I really only have this part open. So if you don't want to close off your whole mountain range, don't glue your trees down all the way. And then for my guy, I just opened the boat up because I didn't have to have him fold. I knew he would be staying open. And I did attach a piece of paper on the very bottom. So if you put this together and you know how it goes in, you can just, I wanted to straighten out the piece on the bottom that folds, attach that down, glued it to the base of this. And then to keep my sides from kind of coming up off the lake, I just press this down and put just a little bead of glue so it dries clear. And even if you can see that little bead, it doesn't matter because it looks like water on the lake. So that was not a big deal. And then my fish is just free. I can kind of position him where I want. So let's look at the outside and the lid because you have some options, and we'll talk about measuring for the lid. I had this all cut out. I decorated it, but this is where I thought I'm going to leave it so I can show you this. So I didn't stop to think how tall my elk and my deer or my bear were. And then when I went to put the lid on, I'm like, well, now I can't see their face. I could have cut this down before I finished off the lid, but I thought, I'm going to leave it, share this. So this is something I learned. You need to think about the lid, how long you're going to make it, how wide the side's going to be before you decorate the side of your box, because now you really can't see these guys, but yeah, you can see these guys. Again, live and learn, right? We make something and then we realize, oh, we should have done this differently. So I will bear that in mind for all future boxes. But let me show you again in under 5 minutes how quick it is to make these boxes. And we're going to make one the same size that we just looked at with a 4-inch base. So I have a 12 by 12 sheet of paper because I'm going to need the 4-inch base, a 4-inch side on all sides. So this one is easy for the math, and I know you can't see this whole board, but I'm just going to score every 4 inches. So I've got 4 inches, 8 inches, and then I'm at the end of my paper of 12 inches. And make sure your paper is 12 by 12. It will make life much easier. Flip it around to the other side and score 4 by 4, or excuse me, 4 and 8. So now we've got what's going to be our center and our 4 flaps. Now we need to trim out these corners. You can do that however you want. You may have a trimmer that, can poke down and knows when to stop exactly. I don't have that. So what I do is I'm just going to take my scissors and cut this out, and it doesn't take that long. Now I'm going to bend this just a little bit for the score line. And this is where I don't cut down, smack down the center of my score line. And I know this will be hard to see, so I'll try to get this in the light where you can sort of see it. On my score line, which is probably like a 1/16 of an inch thick, I'm going to cut on the side closest to the flap that's going to stay. So like on this one, on the score line, I'm trimming out on the right side of that score line, and it's easy to follow to where it intersects. And then on this side of it, because this is the panel that's going to stay, I'm going to cut to the left of the score line. And then I don't have any kind of ridge on my flap. And I know that's probably like, oh, that's awful picky. So you can do it however you want. But I don't like the look of that ridge on that flap. So that's why I do what I do. And then I would cut the other 3 out. And then after I've cut everything out, that's when I go and I just crease on all sides. And then I will have the box with the flaps. So if I leave this here, you can see how I trimmed out the 4 corners and then folded it in. And that's all there is to the box. And then you can decorate it, put pockets, whatever. So let's talk about the lid, because that is important and not just the base of it. So I have to draw myself a picture. I can't just sit here and add up the numbers in my head. And my base of the box is 4-inch square. So I want my lid just a tad bit bigger so that I can make sure it's going to cover the box without being too tight. So anywhere from 1/8 to 3/16 of an inch. I would say 1/4 inch is too big. And this one I'm going to do 1/8 of an inch. The one that we looked at with the fisherman was actually 3/16 of an inch because I knew I was going to have a lot of paper on the side. So again, 1/8 most of the time will probably work. So I just draw my little box and say it's 4 1/8, and then I decide how long down I want my lid to go. So this one is 1.5 inch, and that was, as we saw, a little too long. So I thought I'm going to make this one 3/4. So my lid will come down 3/4 of an inch, and I'm going to have that on all sides. So I just basically draw another little box and just where I'm going to fold and whatnot, and put 3/4 and 3/4. I need to double that. Come up here and I do my math at 4 1/8 for the box. 3/4 and 3/4 is 1.5, so I put it as 1 4/8 so I can add my fractions better. So that gives me a total of 5 5/8 square that I need to make for this lid. So I've gone ahead and cut my paper at 5 5/8. I want a 3/4 inch drop for the sides. So I'm just going to go around and do 3/4 of an inch. And then I'll trim. I won't trim out the corners, but I need to make a cut on one of the corners, or on all the corners. So let me do that. Now, it's easier for me to flip it over and see the back side where it's the raised part. So what I'm going to do on this, and I'm going to pick one side. I always do it on the right side of this little corner, and I'm going to do this all the way around before I do anything else. So again, I do that thing where I cut to the right of the score line just so I don't have that in my flap. So I've cut this side. Now I'm going to go to the next corner and I'm going to hold it in the same position. And again, I'm going to cut to the right, on the right side of that little square. And I need to make this the same, otherwise we're not going to be able to close up the lid if we get off and we cut the left side. So I like to go around and do that, because what we're going to do, let me just fold these in real quick so you can see how this works, is we're going to take this little flap and that's going to fold underneath to make the corner of our box. But before I do that, the other thing I like to do is I come out here and take out just a teeny tiny wedge, because this gives me a little flexibility that we're going to look at. So I go back and do that. Now the wedge comes out of this little flap that's going to fold under. Don't take the wedge out of your flap that you're going to see. This part's going to be folded underneath. And it doesn't have to be very big. And then it just goes up to that corner there. And then we're going to fold this up. Now, one thing to remember is do all your decorating while your box is flat and while your lid is flat. It may be very tempting to take this box and say, oh, I'm going to go ahead and put it together. Well, it's going to be a lot harder to put all that paper on if you do that. But let me just fold this up. And we'll fold in the flaps. And after you decorate the outside of the box, then you can go in and glue down these flaps on all four corners. And that is what's going to give you your box lid. And even though it's not glued down, I don't have that box finished, but let's use this box. It's the same size. I can go over and just try this out and make sure this is going to fit before I decorate it and go to all that work. And so this will fit just fine and pull it up. That's how easy it is to make this box. Again, all the fun is in decorating. I really decorated a lot on this, but let me show you a couple others I did. And I'm going to show you one in a different size, and I let all the paper do the work. So if you need ideas on decorating or pockets, again, there's a million of them online of these explosion boxes to check out. So let me show you this one. This is a different theme. This is more about the movies, and you're going to see how I did the curtains a little differently. I learned from last time not to make this so deep, and I worked the curtain so it works with the curtain underneath. And I just pulled out all the movie type of dies I had in my stash. And this time when I open it up, I have the pop-up of Karen Burniston's popcorn box full of popcorn. And again, just a fun way to maybe give a gift to someone other than just sticking a gift card in a envelope, although you could still make a cool pop-up card to accompany that gift card. But this is just something different. And you can see how I decorated the pockets. So what I did on this, when I cut out one of the 4x4 corners, I just cut that piece corner to corner on the diagonal, and then I could make these pockets. I cut it on the diagonal and then just turned in 1/4 of an inch on the straight edges and just attached it. So this time, like, Wicked is one of my favorite movies. Say I wanted to treat a friend who also likes Wicked, I could stick something like that in. You could print that off the internet. Some other fillers, I just printed this off. And then this would be like a gift card to the theater. And then I do have a Tim Holtz stamp and die set. And I have the die handy, but I didn't have the stamp set handy. But I could print off or just make, there's a Paramount ticket and Market Square Theater tickets just to stick in there as decoration, just to make it fun. So what did I use for this one? This is 4x4. I made it exactly like we just did when we were cutting out that piece of white paper. Let me just show you what I used here for this. My curtains is from Hero Arts. This is a Ralph Tinsdale die. I love this curtain die. So I used it on all 4 sides. Plus, even though it's one die, and you could see that my curtains are narrower than this die is here. So I just cut this out, and then I could trim along the center line here. I cut this center piece out. I could put the side panels in the way I needed them, and then I could just take this center curtain and put it down over the top. And I basically did the same thing here, except this time I left the center curtain and trimmed in off the sides. And I didn't have to trim in too much. You can kind of see there. But then that way my top curtain flopped over the top curtain on the side. So that's what I use for the curtains. For my audience here that's all excited about the movie here is also from the same collection. This is called Center Stage Crowd. And then I had some dies from My Favorite Things to do the popcorn and the glasses, the drink, and these little bitty popcorn, nachos, and a cup. So this is from My Favorite Things. This is called Movie Munchies, and tiny, 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 but boy, they were perfect for my audience to hang on to. And then, let's see, my other one that I used, again, from My Favorite Things, is Movie Icons. So you can see all the ones. I used all of these and then just decorated the sides. So this one was not as intense as making the fishermen and all the boats. And then I just pulled out, I wanted more of a script font for the front of it saying starring. And so this is an ancient Quick Cuts font. So again, use what you've got. On the inside, I pretty much showed you all of that. I do have a stamp set from My Favorite Things with this collection that I used for the lid. And this is called Movie Night. And then I did it on a couple of the pockets and on the white background here for my flaps. And then I used, again, if I needed another icon just for my gift card, I could duplicate that. And then for the popcorn box, that great pop-up from Karen, You need the flower pot pop-up as the base, and then the popcorn set to decorate that box and make all that popcorn. Now, because again, this doesn't have to fold up, I wanted to make this a little sturdier. And if you look at the bottom, you kind of see that X there with the two pieces of paper, the white pieces of paper crossing the bottom. I just cut those out and then made a little tab to glue to the sides, and then that made it nice and sturdy, and that's what I used to glue down the base. I didn't go around and glue this down because that made it nice and sturdy. It's not going anywhere and it sits nice and flat. So another occasion, I just had fun pulling out the dies that had anything to do with movies and popcorn and creating that. Now, maybe we want to create something and we don't want to do so much die cutting and all of that. So this one is a little smaller, and you could put a real gift in these. They don't have to just be for gift cards. So let me show you this one. The only thing I die cut out of this whole thing is happy birthday. The rest of it, the paper did. I had a paper pad for birthdays, and everything is simply making that box, which took under 5 minutes, and then cutting the papers to decorate the sides. And when I opened this one up, I wish I had a cupcake, but I don't. So I just had this small apple, but just to show you, you could use something else than a paper-made pop-up. If I used this for a cupcake, I would make it 4x4. I think I need that room in there so the frosting doesn't get all over the sides, and it would be big enough for the pop or the cupcake. If you do something like that, whatever you put in here, somehow figure out a way to attach it to the base so it's not rolling around. I just used a couple little glue dots to hold my fake apple down. Otherwise, it would be rolling around inside. But I did a couple of diagonal pockets again. I did like a straight across pocket. And this is where you can do what you want. Gift cards. Now, I will say this. If you want to put it with a gift card, you need a flap that's taller than 3 inches. So you could do that. You could make a 3x3 base and then get your piece of paper out, do a little diagram like this, and make this, I would say, I think at least 3.5. Measure your gift card first, because if I had a true size gift card, it wouldn't fit in here. So another little thing to remember, so you're not having to cut 2 boxes out. The width will always be what it is of your base, but you can make your flaps a lot longer if you so desire. And then, like, I just made a little book using the paper pack to decorate it, and then I can write a little note inside. So again, use what you have. I was thrilled when I found this birthday paper, and I made this in no time, because I wasn't die cutting anything but the happy birthday. And I even made a teeny tiny box. I want to say this is a little over an inch, maybe 1.5 inches. But you could do, and I didn't decorate this one, but you can just see the way to make these is all the same. And then the lid is like 1 1/8, I think. I made one with 1 3/16, and it was way too big. So you can see how way too much room, even if this is decorated. I would always make it at least 1/8 of an inch, or excuse me, 1/16 of an inch bigger than your box, because otherwise this is going to be really tight to get on and off. And if you've got any decoration, you might have your pieces going in just because it's so tight. But I wanted to try these explosion boxes. You could layer these up if you wanted more flaps to come out. For me, 4 is enough to decorate, but you could layer these up and have like a 4x4, maybe 3 3/4, and stack them in so you've got multiple flaps coming down. Just so many different ideas. But if you've got something, if you have a pop-up that you want to use for the inside, I think this is a really fun way to use the pop-ups outside of a card. Plenty of room to put gift cards in, notes, whatever you want to do, and personalize it. And again, you can go all out like I did with my fisherman. A lot of die cutting there, a lot of decorating, or just keep it super simple and let the paper do all the work for you. So if you have a special occasion coming up and you need something for a presentation of a gift, this might be a new idea rather than just wrapping up a box. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in a future video.